It's time.
It's time for a new episode of TMG.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to TMG. I'm your host, Travis Patton Sr. I enjoy discovering and sharing real-life moments of inspiration from everyday people. And this show is about finding moments of inspiration for our everyday lives. And look, and if you're going to tell me something, then tell me something good. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year and welcome to the very first episode, a new episode of TMG. That's Tell Me Something Good podcast. Guys, I'm your host, Travis Patton Sr. I hope you had a great holiday. Hope your New Year's kicking off well. Guys, listen, before we get started, you know how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to change that much, guys. Before we get started, I got to give a huge shout out to my biggest supporter, my biggest fan, my lovely wife, Nicole. Girl, that's your New Year's shout out right here. Yeah, I know you're watching. I know you're listening. Guys, I don't know what the holidays were like for you, but they were really great for me, and I'm really grateful and thankful for that. Also, I'm grateful that I'm back here streaming live with all you individuals who choose to come in each week to watch and listen to the show. I'm so excited that you're here. Man, I have been ready to get started to do this since last year. So I've been sitting on go. As you can see, some new things behind us. We got a lot of more new things coming up, so keep your eyes on TMG. Guys, listen, I've always said this, and I mean this. I'm just so humbled by how everyone joins in and watches the show. Yeah, it's because of you that there is a season 3. Yeah, because of you, people who tune in each week, whether you're at work and you're watching or listening, or maybe you're around the house or you're driving and you're watching and you're faithfully listening. Thank you for tuning in each week, all the time, every time. I'm so glad that you're here. Maybe this is your very first time tuning in to the show. Maybe it's a new year and you say, look, I'm trying to find a new podcast to listen to or find a different voice. Well, here I am, and you found me. I'm so excited that you're tuning in as well. So if this is your first time tuning in to the show, let me tell you, thank you. I'm so glad that you are here. Guys, don't forget you can tune in to the show each week right here on Facebook, YouTube, guys, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, you name it. Each week right here, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. 5 p.m. for those who live in the Mountain Time. I am so glad, guys, that you are here. I'm so excited to be here today. I am a new show, new episode. Man, I told you in a short time, this show is really being heard all around the world. Yeah, all around the globe, this show is being heard. I mean, places like Germany, the Faroe Islands, Jordan, Malta, just to name a few. So to everyone that's tuning in, wherever you may be tuning in from, whether you may be downloading or watching this episode on, thank you and welcome to the show. Guys, today I have a really great topic, something really good I want to discuss with you today. And I thought about this topic, I think back in October. I kind of had some things together back in October for this, and I was putting some things together. And I said, well, what would be a really great show to kick off the New Year's with? This great first show of the new year. And I said, what could I do? And it kind of hit me, and it hit me in a strange way. I actually was watching a video online. I don't know, some funny video I was watching online. And as I watched it, I noticed the video, I was done watching it, but the video continued to play. Yeah, I was done watching the video, but the video itself did not stop playing. And that made me to begin to think. That caused me to begin to think about some things. It really did. It caused me to begin to think about sometimes some things. At any given time, we can at any given time we can go online and watch cooking videos, funny videos, or if you're trying to build something, you can watch a how-to video. And you may be done watching the video, but the video itself will continue to play. So I thought about it. I said, you know what? A good topic to discuss today would be called In the Loop. Yeah, in the loop. We're talking about in the loop. And I know a lot of times we talk about being in a loop, we're talking about being in a specific circle, a specific group where information sometimes is only travels within a shared within the loop. If you're not in the loop, then you don't get the information. Some certain things are only shared when it's in the loop. Certain things are only passed along when it's in the loop. And they'll tell somebody, oh, you didn't get the memo, maybe because you aren't in the loop. And they say, well, I didn't understand the joke. It's because you weren't in the loop. I didn't get the message. It's because you weren't in the loop. And today we're going to talk about being in the loop. Yeah, today we're going to talk about being in the loop. And as I said, at any given time, we can go online and watch cooking videos, funny videos, or someone's doing something funny, or they're jumping on something, or cars crashing, or all kinds of videos online that we can go and watch. Or if you're trying to build something, like I said, we can go and watch how-to videos on how to do it. And we don't even have to go to school sometimes for some things. A lot of things we can just watch videos and we can see them. And I noticed that the video that I was watching, I kid you not, guys, I was watching this video and I was done watching the video, but the video continued to play. The video kept going. It kept going. And it kept going. And it kept going. Now, I was done. Something else had my attention, but the video was going. A lot of the videos that we entertain ourselves with online are set to play in what is called a loop. Yeah, it's set to play in what is called a loop. Now, a loop is something that repeats itself without ever having to change itself. Yeah, we're going to revisit that point. I know, you want me to go back to that point, but a loop is something that repeats itself without ever having to change itself. I'm going to put up a quick example of a video that is in a loop. I'm going to put up an example of it. Guys, let me show you real quick. That is a loop, guys. It just repeats itself without ever having to change itself. Do you know, have you ever met anybody that it seems like they can get a different job, or they can move to a different side of town, but it seems like things in their life continue to repeat itself, but nothing about them ever change? A loop is something that repeats itself without ever having to change itself. Have you ever felt like you were in a loop? New year. You know how they say new year, new me? But sometimes the new year and you still feel like the same person. New year, I'm going to do things different. I'm going to be this. I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to eat healthier. Or I'm going to stop doing this. New year, new me. And it seems like we're back in the same loop. New year, new me. And I'm in the same loop. A loop is something that repeats itself without ever having to change itself. going through the same repetitive motions, but no change ever took place. Let me put the loop back up again, guys. It's repeating itself, but it's never changing itself. And the only way to do that, you got to change what's happening or change what you see. Now, so a loop is something that repeats itself without ever having to change itself. Now, one thing I noticed about a loop, I did notice this. We might notice different things each time the loop plays, but it's still the same loop. There might be small differences, but it's still just a loop. And when we find our day when we find that our day is repeating itself, it's because we are in a loop. Yeah, when we find that our day is repeating itself, it's because we are caught in a loop. And what I mean by day repeats itself, I'm referring to how we process that day and how we go through that day. There's a popular movie, one of my favorite all-time movies. It's a movie called Groundhog Day. And in this movie, this guy finds himself repeating the same day over and over again. And he wakes up at a certain time. He puts his clothes on at the same time. He's late every day the same time. He eats the same thing for breakfast. He puts his right shoe on, then his left sock, and then his left shoe. He puts his coat on, puts his right arm in his coat. I mean, he goes through the same day. He relives the same day. Now, just because it's the same day doesn't mean we have to relive the same day. So we process the day the same way. We repeat itself, and we find that our day is repeating itself is because we are caught in a loop. And what I mean by our day repeats itself, I'm referring to how we process the day and how we go through our day. Yeah, how we go through the day. We wake up at 6 o'clock. We get our cup of coffee. We start getting the kids ready. We put our left shoe on, our right shoe on. We put this on. We get outside the door to go to work, or if you commute to work virtually, we do it all the same. And we begin to think and process everything about our day the same way. It becomes the same thing. It's a new year, but it's just January. It's a new day, but it's just 2023. It's another day, but it's just another day. It's just another day. And we find ourselves thinking of our day as just another day. And we begin to think about things as it's just another time. So there may be small differences that we notice, but it's still the same loop. We might see small differences and notice some different things, but if we stand back and if we look at it and stand back and look at it, we are still in the same loop. We go so far, and then everything begins to look the same. You know what I'm saying? The holidays have come and gone, and everybody was excited. There was some excitement in the holidays. New Year's came and gone. They dropped the big apple or they dropped the giant peach, and we're all screaming, Happy New Year. And there was some excitement. But now, after the excitement is over, everything begins to looking the same. It starts looking just like January of 2022. It starts beginning to feel like January of a previous year. And after the excitement is over, everything starts becoming the same. The loop is still there. What do you do when the excitement seems to have left and all you're left with is the loop? You know how it is when you first watch a video that you like, and after that excitement is gone, what do you do after the excitement is gone? What do you do when you're no longer excited about your day? What do you do when you're no longer excited about yourself? What do you do when you're no longer excited about where you work or your job or your employment? What do you do when you're no longer excited about seeing someone that you love or your loved one? And you find yourself caught in a loop. Yeah, you find yourselves caught in a loop. We have to be determined. And this is something I learned, that we have to be determined that the same old just ain't enough anymore. We may have done the same old last year and in 2021 and in 2019. Listen, but we have to be determined that the same old just ain't enough anymore. Yeah, it might be another Monday. It might be another Tuesday, but the same old, it just ain't enough anymore. Yeah, I can't go through life with just the same old anymore. I can't go through life thinking about myself the way I did. I can't go through life talking negatively about myself the way we did. The same old, it just ain't enough anymore. Yeah, it just ain't enough anymore. It's kind of like someone trying to learn to swim, and they say, "Well, man, swimming, getting out there in all that water, all that swimming, all that ain't for me." How can we say that swimming is not for us and we go no further than 3 feet in? How can you say that you don't like swimming and you only go as far as 3 feet in? We can't say we don't like something different and we only go as far as 3 feet in. The only way we're going to learn how to swim is we're going to have to go out a little deeper. Yeah, we're going to have to go out to where it scares us. We're going to have to go out where we're uncomfortable. We're going to have to go out where we don't feel easy, where things don't look comfortable, where things don't look the same. We're going to have to go out, listen, we're going to have to go out there where the waves push us around a little bit. Otherwise, we'll only go as far as 3 feet in, and we'll stay in the same water, and we'll keep in the same loop. We'll stay in the same loop, and the same loop will continue to play. The only way to stop a loop is to find what's causing the loop and then turn it off. In other words, find or discover what pressed start on the loop in the first place. What made your loop begin to play? Yeah, I noticed when I went online to watch the video, I had to navigate to that area. I had to press play. But what is making your loop play? What pressed play on your loop? What started your loop to play? What was it that pressed start on your loop? Some of us, we have certain ways of thinking and things that we do, and we say, well, that's just how they are. That's not just how they are. They caught in a loop. You ever meet someone and you say, man, they are mean, or man, they sure have a bad attitude. You fail to realize that we are the recipients of somebody else pressing play on their loop. And all we are doing is catching the loop still playing. I was watching a video I told you online. I pressed play on the loop. And when I was done watching the video, I laid my cell phone down. My wife came in the room and saw the video playing. And she started watching the loop. And she began laughing. Well, she was just a recipient of me pressing play on the loop. She was watching something I had already pressed play on. What are we watching that somebody else started? Are you watching something, some behavior? Are you seeing something that somebody else pressed play on? What started your loop? Maybe it's a bad attitude, maybe it's a way of thinking, but what started your loop? The only way to stop the loop is to find what started it and then turn it off. For some reason, for some people, for example, if you raise your voice at them, they can't stand to have someone raise their voice at them. It just kind of sends them kind of shockwaves through their bodies. And the reason is this. For some people, when they hear someone raise their voice at them, the loop will begin to play because they were traumatized or abused by someone who raised their voice. And every time they hear someone raise their voice, the loop of what happened begins to play. Yeah, every time someone raises their voice at them, the loop of what happened to them begins to play. It begins to play out all over again in their minds. And emotionally, they're taken back to that same place. Mentally, they go back to that same place. It's not so much that they don't care about you screaming or raising your voice. It's because when you began to raise your voice, you had no idea that you was pressing play on that loop. And that loop of what happened began to play all over again. For others, you might see this with individuals who have battled with what they call PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm not just talking about our veterans who've been to war. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful for all of our veterans who have been to war, who have fought the fights that we never fought, who have fought the battles we never saw, who engaged in combat while we were sleeping. Thank you. And so I'm not just talking about our veterans. I'm not just talking about those who've been to war. I'm talking about emotional PTSD. Yeah, when our emotions have been traumatized, when our emotions have been to war, when our emotions have been in battle. Sometimes emotionally, we can feel like we've been into hand-to-hand combat emotionally. Sometimes emotionally, we feel like we've been fighting in combat. Sometimes emotionally, we feel like we've been hand-to-hand combat. But I'm talking about emotional PTSD. And you don't even have to leave your home to hear bombs going off. Yeah, you could be in your living room and those bombs will go off. I'm talking about the things that we constantly hear over and over in our heads, even while we're watching TV. Those thoughts that come to us that constantly tell us that we're not good enough, that constantly tell us we'll never amount to anything. Those emotional bombs that go off. Every time someone tries to get close to us, all we can hear is the last person that walked out on us. Every time somebody says, trust me, all we can hear is the last person that lied to us. Emotional PTSD, bombs going off. every time someone tries to love us, all we can see is the last person that rejected us. And bombs are going off. We have no idea. You could be sitting next to somebody right now, and bombs are going off in their mind. That's why you can say the smallest or the simplest thing to them, and they'll turn around and look at you as if you stole their money. What you talking about? It's because the bombs are going off. Somebody that you could be sitting right next to somebody right now, and they could be in hand-to-hand combat in their thoughts, hand-to-hand combat in their emotion, and you had no idea that the loop was playing in their head. You had no idea that you pressed play. My loop won't stop playing. You had no idea that you're catching that person in the middle of a loop that started playing when they was that happened when they were 5-year-old. Somebody said something to them, and the loop is still playing. Guys, let me share something with you. I remember, and it's a deep moment. I want to share something with you guys. I remember when I was coming up, my mom made a statement that kept me in a loop for a long time. I want to share this with you. I remember my mom told me, I can't remember how old I was, but I was old enough to remember this. My mom looked at me and told me, and I don't fault my mom, so no judging. My mom looked at me and she told me once, she said, "You are the worst mistake that I ever made." Now that thing emotionally kept me in a loop for a long time where I felt like I would never be good enough for anybody. I felt I would always be a mistake. I felt like I was always going to be a mistake. But I had to learn that I'm not a mistake. And you have to find a way to come out of that loop, because my loop kept playing over and over in my head. No matter what I did, no matter what was said to me, my loop kept playing. And you have to find whatever is controlling the loop and turn it off. Now, it might look differently from person to person because each of us are different individuals. It might sound differently from person to person because each of us are different. It might look differently because of our culture and what we are taught within our culture. But find what is controlling the loop and turn it off. You might need to get some help with that one. You might need to get some counseling for that one. But find what's controlling your loop and turn it off. Let me show you that loop once again. Now, that loop will continue to play until it turn it off. Certain things in our minds will continue to play until we turn it off. If we find ourselves repeating some things, it will continue to play until we turn it off. A loop is designed to do what it's going to do. It's going to play until we turn it off. You might need to get some help. You might need to get some counseling. You might need to talk to someone. But living outside my loop was something I'm determined to do. You have to be determined to live outside of your loop. Listen, the thing about a loop I want you to remember is this. There are 3 things I want you to remember about a loop. 3 things I want you to remember about a loop. A loop will always do 3 things. It will delay, deny, and prevent. It will delay, deny, and prevent. It will deny us. Let's first talk about denying us. Let's first talk about how a loop will deny us. How remaining in a loop will keep us denied from something or deny us. It will deny us from ever knowing or realizing if there is something coming after the loop. As long as the loop is playing, it will deny us from ever knowing if there's something coming after the loop. As long as the loop is on the screen, as long as the loop is in our heads, as long as that same state of thinking about ourselves is going on, we'll never know if there's something else coming after the loop. As long as we continue to say, I'm not good enough, I'll never be enough, as long as that loop is continuing in our minds, as long as that loop continues, we will never know. It will continue to deny us of ever knowing if there is something coming after the loop. So it can deny us from ever knowing the truth about ourselves. Yeah, whatever loop is playing in our minds, it will deny us from ever knowing the truth about ourselves. I can play this loop, but the truth is, I'm still here. If all you saw was the loop on the screen, you would think that's all there is. If all you hear are the same things about yourself, all you hear are the same things about your life, you begin to think that that's all your life is about. Listen, there's more to you than what the loop has been telling you. So a loop will deny us from ever knowing the truth about ourselves. As long as we remain in the loop, it will be the only truth we know about ourselves. For example, if we were born with one foot, and if we only believe that part of the story or that part of the loop, then we could only accomplish what that part of the loop says. Yeah, it will deny us the opportunity of different exposure. Yeah, it will deny us the opportunity of a different type of exposure, from being exposed to different things, to different people, from different cultures, from different people, different way of thinking. Because not only when we are in a loop, our ability to be exposed to different things and different people are also in a loop. Our exposure and our experiences are in a loop. For example, individuals, it's not that they are incapable. For some people, it's not that they are incapable or untalented. They just haven't had the right exposure. You know how it is, you can get around certain people and certain things, and all of a sudden, creativity begins to flow in your mind. It's because you had a different exposure. You get around in a certain room with certain people, and you start to develop characteristics of the room that you're in because you've been exposed to some certain things. You've been exposed to certain different types of things. Listen, they haven't had the opportunity to get in front of the right situations or the right moments. Maybe the idea that you have, and the goal you have isn't as far-fetched as you might thought it might be. Maybe it's all about being exposed to the right people. Maybe you're not as bad as people say you are. Maybe you're not as mean as everyone thinks you might be. Maybe it has to do with what you've been exposed to. Listen, you might have every right to be mean if everybody treated you the way they did. Yeah, You might have every right to be upset if everything that you've gone through, if you had to survive everything that you survived, you might have a right to be upset. You might have a right to be mean. But it's not who you are, it's what you've been exposed to. And you are more than what you've been exposed to. You are more than the loop that you've been caught in. So don't beat yourself up. Instead, ask yourself, is this because this was something I was exposed to? Maybe it was something that you were exposed to. So don't beat yourself up. Ask yourself, what have I been exposed to? So a loop will deny us of exposure to something different, deny us of better relationships, deny us of different opportunities. It will, listen, if we had the same type of opportunities, if we go after the same type of opportunities, if we're around the same type of people, if we only talk to the same type of people, those who look like us, those who sound like us, and those who come from where we come from, check the controls. You might be in a loop. Yeah, you might be in a loop. So a loop will deny us. It will also prevent us. It will deny us from ever knowing the truth about ourselves. But a loop will also prevent us. A loop will prevent us from seeing what's coming next. Yeah, a loop will prevent us from seeing what's coming next. More than this, it will prevent us from knowing there ever was something coming next. Yeah, it will prevent us from ever knowing there was something coming next. A loop will have us believing that what we see is all that we will ever see. Yeah, it'll have us believing that what we see is all that we will ever see. Where you work is all you will ever work. What you do now is all you will ever do. This is just the way life is. This is just how it's going to be. I guess I might as well get used to it because this is just how things going to be for people like me. This is just how things going to be for people, like for a person like me, for a person who's made as many mistakes as me. This is just how things has to be for me. For somebody whose life isn't perfect, this is how things just have to be. A loop will prevent us from seeing. It will cause us to believe that what we see is all we will ever see. Because I'm a single mom, this is all I have to put up with. Because I'm a single parent, this is all I have to deal with. It will have us believing that what we see is all we will ever see, and prevent us from ever knowing that something else, that something is coming next behind the loop. It won't even give us a chance to think there could be something different. This is so much more different than something that is denied, right? That's different than something that's denied. This is something that's preventing us. When something is denied, you may not know that there is something that you can get to. When something is denied, you may not know it's there and that you can even get to it. So when something is denied, you may not even know that something even there and you can get to it. For example, during the civil rights era, African Americans were denied the right to vote. They knew the right was theirs. They knew it was theirs for the taking, but they were denied the right to vote. So when you are denied, you might know it's there, but you can't get to it. When you are prevented from ever knowing, listen, you might not even know it's there. They weren't prevented from voting. They were denied. The right was given to them. It was guaranteed to them, but they were denied. What are we guaranteed? And the loop is denying us. But when something is prevented, you may not even know it's yours. And the loop is preventing you from ever discovering what is next. The loop is preventing you from ever discovering that something is better behind it. What is standing in the way and preventing us from ever discovering something good about yourself? When something is prevented, you might not even know it even exists. You can find examples of this in everyday life. There are gender wage gaps, socioeconomic gaps where individuals for years were prevented from ever knowing that some programs and policies ever existed to help get them back on their feet. It's not that they were denied, because some things they never knew existed, but they were prevented from ever knowing. One of the reasons slave masters made it against the law for slaves to read is because they wanted to prevent them from ever knowing there was a better life than the one that they were living. They wanted to prevent them from ever realizing something differently about themselves. So a loop will prevent you from ever realizing there's something better about yourself. The reason that thought keeps coming in your mind, putting down how you feel, is because it wants to prevent you from ever realizing there's something better about yourself. Yeah, it wants you to realize it. Have you ever had that feeling? Have you ever had that feeling? The feeling that, listen, that there's got to be something more than just this, more than just waking up and going to work and going through the routine and going through the same old. There's got to be more. Have you ever had that feeling that there's got to be something more to life than just this? More than life than just feeling how you feel. That feeling of you are meant for something else. You can't put your finger on it, but you are meant for something better. Each time a slave learned to read, they broke a law that was drilled into them. And whatever has been drilled into us, we have to be willing to break our own laws. Yeah, we have to be willing to break our own laws. Those thoughts that are set up in our minds that tell us we can't succeed. Those thoughts that are set up in our minds that challenge our worth and dignity. Every feeling of inadequacy. When you come around people or into a room that make you feel inadequate, every thought that comes at you and tries to tell you that you're not worth the effort. Yeah, thoughts that come and tell you that you are not worth the effort. Listen, if it took effort to get you here, it took effort to get you here. So how can it be that you're not worth the effort when it took some effort to get you here? It took effort to carry you for 9 months. It took effort to feed you for all the time that it did. It took effort to prepare you for this day. Listen, you know that I'm a big believer in positive confession. Sometimes you just have to say something differently about yourself. Begin to say this to yourself. Begin to say it over yourself. Say it. I'm worth the effort. Yeah, I'm worth the effort. I am worth the effort. Yeah. People may disagree with your hairdo, but you are worth the effort. They may not like what school you went to, but you are worth the effort. They may not like your personal beliefs, but you are worth the effort. You are worth the effort for someone to take the time and get to know. Listen, you are more than a one-night stand. You are worth the effort. You are worth the effort to invest in yourself. You are worth the effort not to be in toxic relationships. Yes, say that again if you have to. I'm worth the effort. Yeah, you're worth the effort to know who you could become next after a breakup, who you could become next after the loss of job, who you could become next after you got over the habit, who you could become next after the pandemic. So loops prevent us, but they also can delay us. When a video, let me put the video of the loop back up again. And as long as that loop is playing, it will delay you from seeing me. As long as that loop is playing, it will delay what's coming behind it. As long as that loop is playing, it will delay what you see next. As long as that loop is playing, it will delay what you hear about yourself. As long as that loop is playing, it will delay what's coming to you. When a video is in a loop and there is something else to see after the loop, we will never see it at the time we are supposed to, because the loop will delay it. It will delay what we should see next. Many of us, including myself, have been in a loop about some things before. Yeah, some things were denied. Yeah, it always seemed, some things that were denied always seems like it was just at our fingertips away. Some things were prevented. We missed some things because we never knew that there was something better. We never knew there was something different. And then we were delayed. Some things looked like it was out of time. Some things looked like it took forever to happen. Looked as if we should have seen it a long time ago. Looked like, man, I should have been there by now. I should have had this by now. I should have had a change in my career by now. I should have gotten this by now. I should have had this happen in my life by now. How many have ever made a New Year's resolution? When the new year came in, you made a New Year's resolution. How many have ever made a New Year's resolution? And a lot of times we make them with the best of intentions. And let's be honest, right? That sometimes we do make New Year's resolutions with intentions on keeping them. And we make them because we want to break the loop. The reason we say, well, this year, I'm going to start going to the gym, or I'm going to be more healthy in my decisions, or I'm going to be more positive in the things that I do. The reason we make New Year's resolutions is because we realize that we're caught in a loop. It might be a loop of bad health choices. It might be a loop of hanging around toxic individuals. It might be a loop of negative thinking. But the reason we make New Year's resolutions is because we want to break the loop. I'm convinced that there are some loop breakers listening and watching. I'm convinced that there's some loop breakers watching right now, that you've made up your mind, you have been delayed for the last time, and that you're making a conscious decision that you are breaking the loop, that this is your last time thinking negatively about yourself, that this is the last time that you overreact, because you're breaking the loop. Who is it that got their minds made up that there's some loops you want to break? Are there any loop breakers listening and watching? When you break it, some won't like it. When you break it, some will talk about you. When you break it, they will try to remind you of everything you did while you were in the loop, but break it anyhow. They might ask you, why now? But to be clear, they may ask you, why you're breaking it now? Why you want to be different now? Listen, but to be clear, you don't owe anyone any explanation. But if they feel they need one, simply say to them, you want to see what's coming next. Let me show you something, guys. Yeah, you want to see what's coming next. Yeah, you want to see what's coming next. You had no idea. Listen, you had no idea this was behind the loop. You had no idea this was coming next. You had no idea that something so breathtaking was behind the loop. You had no idea that something so amazing was behind the loop. It wasn't the haters. It wasn't your ex or your boss that kept you from seeing what's coming next. It was the loop. You had no idea this picture was behind the loop. You had no idea it looked this good behind the loop. Listen, are there any individuals watching that's ready, that's saying, I'm a loop breaker, that's listening and want to see what's coming next for them? Break the loop. If they get angry with you, break it. If they stop texting you, break it. If they unfriend you on social media, break it. Because it's not about you. It's not about them. It's about what's next. It's your time. It's time to see what's behind your loop. Guys, it's that time. Don't forget to visit our YouTube page. That's Tell Me Something Good. Guys, don't forget to tune in right here each Thursday at our time, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, to listen to the show. And don't forget to listen. You can take a survey after the show, guys. There will be a survey. And don't forget, you can stream your favorite episode on your favorite streaming platform like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, and so many more. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And as always in party, if you're going to tell me something, then tell me something good. I'm out of here. I got to go. Peace.